and I just got back from Mexico yesterday. We had an amazing trip. This is actually the song we're going to sing together. This is one of the songs we sang in the church on last Sunday, worshiping together. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but it's just kind of a cool little memory. This is Mighty to Save. I know it's one of our favorite songs as a congregation, so sing it loud with us. Never cease to come. morning. We want to point out a couple of things that might be a little different from maybe some other churches that you visited. You'll look at the pew in front of you. You'll see a little elastic band there that has some information in front of you. The New Here brochure is going to have everything you need to know about the church and the staff and ways to get connected with us. There are a few ways to connect. You can get on the YouVersion Bible app, find a JC3 event, and save that, and you can follow us there. You can also connect, if you're a little more old school, using the Connect card, a little piece of paper. It's in your bulletin. You can fill that out and drop it in the offering plate as it goes by, or in the tithe boxes in the back. We'd love to get in touch with you if you are a member, if you're a visitor. We'd love to be connected with you somehow. If you're interested in serving, you can learn more about ways to serve with the church that way. Finally, we do take communion every Sunday. So towards the end of the service, as the bread and cup are passed, take a few moments just to reflect. If you're a believer, we invite all of you to join us for that communion service together. So let's celebrate this morning in our worship service. We're blessing, thanking God and blessing our fathers for on Father's Day today. So let's turn your attention to the screen.
Fresh paper, write posters and take pictures of houses. He worked on his computer, get me papers. He usually sits at a desk and does paperwork. Sometimes he goes out on the roads to fix a pothole or something. Coach, preaching and Bible stuff. He wants a flatbed. My dad doesn't have a dream car. My dad's dream car is a truck. He enjoys Alaska and the last frontiers. Westerns.
My dad's favorite TV show is Gunsmoke.
It's Georgia Farm Monitor. His deadliest hit. Whichever one has the football on it.
My dad's favorite TV show is the news.
With me. With God. Working outside and helping the family. On the couch. He likes to spend his free time on the toilet.
My dad's favorite snack is jelly beans.
Is M&M's. And pretzels and peanuts. Playgrounds. Barbecue chips. Chips. Maybe pork chop. Maybe pork chop again. The Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's my favorite. I just need to put hot dogs on now. I think casserole or something. His chicken legs that he makes. Beef. Steak. My dad's favorite food is steak. Or chicken. His grilled chicken legs. Total did not find a joke and we all laughed because it wasn't funny. He always makes jokes about when we are out in the farm.
So we went to this Mexican store and we ate this really hot pepper and it did not turn out well.
Love him forever and ever, and I will never not love him, so I'll never leave him.
Let's give our fathers a big round of applause. That's awesome. That is awesome. So we do want to say Happy Father's Day and welcome you to Jefferson City Christian Church. My name is Luke Amon. I'm the teaching pastor here at the church. As usual, I want to let you guys know that if you are following with us in this Esther series, back in the back we have passed out we're giving away some notebooks that you guys can take home with you. We've also got every week we're going to have some questions and some ways to follow our sermon series. That way you can take it home with you and do a study of Esther yourself. If you have missed a Sunday, you can always go to YouTube on our YouTube channel and check us out, and you can always get the ones from the past and fill in those using our YouTube channel. We do want to celebrate Father's Day, and what I did this week is I thought I'd have a little fun, and I don't know if you ever find yourself listening to Delilah during the week, because she's great, and she does requests and things like that, but ever so often I'm driving at home in the evenings and I'm listening to Delilah, and I thought, you know what, if people were to dedicate dads a song, what kind of songs would be good dedication songs? So I wrote down a few to give you some suggestions if you want to give your dad a Father's Day, a song. I thought if it was the sweet and heartfelt emotion you're looking for, Conway Twitty's That's My Job is a good one. Eric Clapton, My Father's Eyes. Zach Brown has a good one called My Old Man. So if you want to go the sentimental route, that's good. If you want to do one that you're just proud of Dad, Beyonce has a song called Daddy. I highly recommend that one. Keith Urban has a good one called Song for Dad. I like that one. If you're going sentimental, but you also want to kind of drop a hint to your dad, you can go Madonna's Papa Don't Preach. That one, my kids actually dedicated that to me. It was good. But if you just want to be totally honest and you want to just be straightforward, Gladys Knight and the Pips has one called Daddy Could Swear, I Declare. But that may be too honest. You might want to just hit that one out there too. That's just one if you really want to be honest. Ever so often, if they hit their thumb or something like that. But here's the thing. I found another one that I was kind of surprised. I was actually surprised this could be a Father's Day song, and I thought I'd let you hear. Are you ready? So you have it queued up? All right, here we go. This is the song I found that I thought actually it fit well with my sermon. So go ahead. You know this one, right? Isn't this what you think of when you think of Father's Day? All right, just a little respect, right? Now, how many of you guys probably associate this with Father's Day? Nobody! I can't believe it. Well, here's what's interesting. This was actually written by a man. This was actually written by a guy named Otis Redding, sitting by the dock of the bay. He was actually the original writer of this song, Respect. And it was written actually when he was sitting in a bar with some of his friends and some of his band members, and they were having a conversation. And he said, Otis, when you get home, you've been working all week long, and you're making all this money. When you get home, I hope your woman gives you a little respect when you get home. So he wrote a song about it. And so I want to read you, and maybe you've heard this song before, because I think a lot of us probably don't associate it with men. They probably associate it with something else, civil rights movement maybe, or maybe women probably associate this more with women and gaining respect for women. And that's actually how it came to be when Aretha took over. But let me read you the lyrics, but written from the perspective of how it was originally written, from a man's perspective, all right? And see if it maybe sounds a little different written from that perspective. What you want? Baby, I got it. What you need? Don't you know I got it? But all I'm asking is a little respect when you get home. Hey, baby, just a little respect when you get home. I ain't going to do you no wrong when you're gone. I ain't going to do you no wrong because I don't want it. And all I'm asking for is a little respect. Just a little bit. Second verses are actually pretty good too. I'm about to give you all my money. And all I'm asking for in return, honey, is to give me my propers. When you get home, yeah, baby, when you get home. This is my favorite line. Ooh, your kiss is sweeter than honey. And guess what? So is my money. Now, thank God for Aretha Franklin, right? Because do you honestly think this song would have survived this long if it were written from the perspective of a man? In the era that we live today, in the era that we go, the civil rights movement and the respect that women needed to gain in that era. Thank God that she added R-E-S-P-E-C-T, what? You need to find out what it means to me, okay? In fact, it probably inspired his second song that was kind of famous, is Sitting by the Dock of the Bay, which is probably what he was doing when she heard the song and said, you need to leave for a couple hours and think about this, okay? So he wrote a song about just watching the tide roll in because he was alone. But this third chapter of Esther is why I thought about this, because if you read the third chapter of Esther, what we're about to talk about, it's about one man feeling disrespected by another man, okay? The guy who feels disrespected is a guy named Haman. And Haman feels disrespected by another guy, and his name is Mordecai. We kind of met him last week in chapter 2, but he feels disrespected by Mordecai, okay? And so what's interesting about this whole chapter is that when you read the chapter and it plays out, the guy who actually has respect in the community is Mordecai. He's the guy that everybody looks to and respects. And Haman's the guy that kind of demands respect. He's the one that kind of says, you're going to respect me, kind of like the song. But Mordecai's the guy who disrespects the guy, but is actually in the community the guy with all the respect. And so it brings up an interesting question about respect, because I think everybody can sit here and say, you know what, we all want respect, don't we? I mean, if you're a parent and you have children, you want their respect, right? We want them to respect us. And if you're a boss, and it doesn't matter what level you are in your company, maybe you're the highest CEO and you control everybody, you want everybody's respect. But you may be the lowest person on the totem pole, right? You still want respect, do you not? Man, woman, black, white color, it doesn't matter. We all want respect. And so the question I have today is, how do we gain the respect of people? How do you do that? How do you gain the respect of the people around you? And so that's what we're going to discuss, because this third chapter is all about this idea of getting, demanding, and wanting respect. So I want to start out with Esther chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. And it comes right after this chapter about Esther becoming queen, but then it goes to a side note to Mordecai and Haman. It says, after these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha. And I highlighted this, the Agagite. And I wish you remember that, because I'm going to go back to that. Elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than any other of the nobles. All the officials at the king's gate knelt and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why in the world do you disobey the king's command? And day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. He would not answer the question. And neither does the scriptures on this. It doesn't go into any detail of why Mordecai would not bow down to Haman. So I thought I would do that for you using kind of a graphic and let you kind of follow through, because this actually has to do with a lot of history. And it goes back, dating almost 1,000 years before they were together. It goes back actually to the second book of the Bible, the book of Exodus. And if you remember a story, Moses goes into Egypt. There's a story in Scripture in Exodus about Moses going into Egypt, and God says, I want you to set my people free, because they were in slavery. They were in bondage for 400 years. He ends up setting them free from Egypt, and they have this great exodus from the land of Egypt and the bondage they were in. Well, it says that God promises them a land flowing with milk and honey called the Promised Land. And so they're making their way through the desert, towards the Promised Land. And it says that while they were going in Exodus 17, 8 through 16, it actually says as they are going, they have no food, they have no water, and the Amalekites decide that they're going to attack the Israelites. Way back in the back, there were millions of people doing this. So back in the back, this is where the people in the back who were tired, they're hungry, they started attacking the Israelites, killing the men, the women, the children, taking their stuff, and they didn't know about it. And this makes God very angry that the Amalekites would attack his people, as they're making their way to the Promised Land. So we jump forward some books, about 3 books later, to Deuteronomy, where God brings judgment on the Amalekites. And he says, listen, and there's a couple of rules and regulations. He's going through all of this. But what you see in Deuteronomy 25 is God saying, you remember the time when the Amalekites attacked us when we were going out of Egypt, when we were making our way to the Promised Land. He says, listen, If you ever see the Amalekites, if we're ever involved in a confrontation against the Amalekites, you show them no mercy. Show them no mercy. I'm bringing judgment on them for the way that they treated my people as we were going to the promised land. And you show them no mercy. And then you skip forward about 4 more books to the book of 1 Samuel, and Saul is king of Israel. And Saul, basically what's happening in Israel is they make it to the promised land, and God promises them they will be a great nation. And so Saul is actually the first king of a united Israel. And they are becoming a great nation. Well, when you're becoming a great nation, there's people already there, so you're going to fight a lot of different types of people who are already there. So one of the people they end up getting in a fight with are the Amalekites. Now, Saul is the king of Israel. He's chosen by God to do this. And he said, Saul, when you go up against the Amalekites, you destroy them. You don't save anything. You kill women, you kill men, you kill children, you burn them down, you take their stuff, you get rid of this. I have already passed judgment on these people. And Saul knew that. So he went into this confrontation against the Amalekites, and he defeats them. However, he keeps the best stuff for himself. All of the best calves, all of the best livestock, all of the best gold. And he says, oh God, I was just keeping that for you, to pay homage to you, to give you sacrifices. But the worst thing he did is he let the king of the Amalekites, or the Agagites, King Agag, that was their king. He let him live. God was furious with Saul. Saul, how could you? God, I'll do A and B, but C, I'm going to go my own way. I have a better way of doing this. And he lets him go. Now fast forward to Mordecai and Haman. What we find out about Mordecai in the 2nd chapter of Esther is that Mordecai is from the tribe of Benjamin and a descendant of Kish. Now Kish, what we find out back before in 1 Samuel, is actually the dad of Saul. Mordecai is in the line of Saul. He's an Israelite in the line of a king. Haman is a descendant, he's an Agagite, which means he's a descendant of who? King Agag. He wouldn't even be there if Saul had done his job. Now, this takes this whole... So when you're talking about why he won't bow, it's like a Hatfield and McCoy type history, right? I mean, if this were in Pigeon Forge, we'd just make a dinner show out of this, okay? And I'd be passing out my famous chicken legs to everybody, and we'd all be eating, right? That's what would happen. But here's the situation. Mordecai refused to compromise his faith. That's why he didn't bow. He didn't bow because he knew that his great-great-great-great-great-great-granddad, listen, he did the wrong thing. He went his own way, and he was not going to make the same mistake as Saul. He was not going to compromise his faith. He was not going to compromise who he was because God had commanded it, and he was not about to stand in front of his people or any other people and bow down to the Agagite because God had forbidden it. And that's why he didn't bow. He would not compromise. He would not make the same mistake as Saul. And it infuriated Haman. Because in the next chapters, the next verses, it says, therefore, all those nobles got together and they told Haman about it. And get this, to see what Mordecai's behavior, if it would be tolerated. In other words, they do what most typical guys do when they want to start a fight. Hey, you going to take that? You going to let him disrespect you like that? Come on. Are you the noble or are you a noble? You the best or you the best? So they got together and they said, hey, come on. Come on. Are you going to let him do that to you? For he had told them he was a Jew. Oh my goodness. He's a Jew and you're going to let him do that to you? Come on. We know the history there, right? Everybody knows that. You're going to let a Jew disrespect you like that? Well, when Haman saw Mordecai would not kneel down or pay honor to him, he was enraged. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned at the idea of only killing Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. And then it goes on to say that in the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the pur, which is a lot, they cast lots, in the presence of Haman to select a day in a month. Just to kind of let you see about this, in the month of Adar, what was happening is in Persia, what you would do for certain nobles and certain kings is you would roll what we would call dice, or what they would call lots, and one would come up, one number would be a month, and one number would be a day. And if you were the noble in front of the dice, that was considered your lucky day. And so it didn't happen for that particular day. In fact, it goes on to say that it was in the second day of the month, and it fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar, which, in other words, I'm going to let you know what that date is. It's actually March 7th. We'll get back to that. Then Haman said to Xerxes, there's a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the province in your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Right? Their customs are different from those of the people, and they do not obey the king's laws. And so it's not just Mordecai who does this, who goes his own way when it comes to his faith. It's everybody. All these people are doing it. It's not in the king's best interest to tolerate this. And if it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them. And I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for their royal treasure. In other words, I'm going to give you some blood money to make this happen. So what he did is he convinced Xerxes to sign a decree to kill all the Jews. And let me show you the two dates that he chose. He sent out the decree on April 17th, which the Jewish people observed as Passover, the day that God actually rescued them from Egypt, or an event that led for their... So he was basically just rubbing it in their face, because this was the history. This is what started all this mess, them leaving Egypt and the Amalekites kind of attacking them through all this. So first of all, he chose a date that they would all know, and that they would all get bad news on the day that they were celebrating this, and then he picked his lucky day. He said, it's going to happen on my lucky day, March the 7th. About a year later. We're going to do away with everybody. And I want to stop for a second. I want to show you something. Is that Haman's idea of respect, and he convinced the king to follow suit. His respect came from his position and his authority and his popularity. That's where he gained respect. And I want to step out of the story for a second. I want to caution you about something. Is when we look to our position and our authority and our popularity, we need to be very careful when we gain respect this way. Using our position or our authority or our popularity. And let me tell you why. Because your position and your authority and your popularity has a time limit. It's short. I've been fascinated over the last month or so watching all of these debates about who's the greatest of all time when it comes to basketball. LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Who is it? And I remember I grew up in the Jordan era when he was doing his great things. Who's the greatest of all time? Is it Dr. J or Michael Jordan? Is it Wilt Chamberlain or Michael Jordan? And everybody agreed it was Michael Jordan. And now it's been 20 years later, and now LeBron James is the greatest. And guess what's going to happen in about 20 years? Who's Michael Jordan? Is it going to be LeBron James and somebody else? Sure. You know why? Because the greatest is going to change. And Bill Gates used to be the richest person in the world. But guess who's now the richest person in the world? Mark Zuckerberg. And one day, somebody's going to be richer than him. And somebody in your company is going to get to be a boss. Then they're going to retire or be fired. Right? Because positions, they change. Number one changes. It's got a time limit. It's got a shelf life. Doesn't it? And one day you'll be on top. One day you won't. Right? And right now, when your kids are small and young, you have authority over them. But guess what? They're going to grow up. They're not going to have to follow everything you say or do. And they're going to go their own way. And you will have no authority over them. And guess what? There are times when if you speak, you're going to say things that everybody agrees with. And then there are times when you're going to say things that everybody disagrees with. Listen. When it comes to position, when it comes to authority or popularity, Respect is about the only thing you have. Because as your kids get older, you better hope they respect you, the less they have to obey you. Because that's where the relationship changes. And if they don't respect you, what's going to happen? And when the position happens, when you're over a bunch of people in a company and they don't respect you, it doesn't matter that you're their boss. You can tell them anything you want to do, but if they don't respect you, what's going to happen? Right? And if you're in a low position in a company and you feel disrespected, how long are you going to stay and support that company? What are you going to say in the community about that company? What are you going to say about those people? And even if you say something that is unpopular, and you know this, even if you disagree with them, even if you go, you know what, I don't particularly agree with you, but you know what, I respect you, so I can respect what you're saying. Even if I disagree, I find myself not being mad about it, but we can have a discussion about this. In fact, I can still go along with you in disagreement because I respect you. But even if you agree with somebody, anybody ever says, you know what, I agree with that person, but I don't respect them. And even if they said something that's completely 100 true, and I agree, I would probably do that, I don't want to be around that person because I don't respect them. So even if they're right, you don't care. Why? It's respect. And when you gain your respect for position or authority and popularity, you lose because you have no respect. And Mordecai lost. Haman did not respect him. Mordecai did not respect Haman. He did not respect Haman because of their history. And Haman could do nothing to change that. And the reason that Haman decided to kill everybody, the reason that Haman decided to destroy the entire population of the Jewish nation is because he feels disrespected. His popularity, his authority, you remember what those guys said? You're going to let that Jew do that to you? You're going to let him say that to you? His authority was being threatened. He was the highest noble. Nobody was going to tell him what to do. And so he decided to make a decree to exert what? His authority. I'm going to put my foot down here. I'm going to show them who's boss. What's interesting, thinking that everyone would like him for it. Thinking that the people would be like, oh man, what a leader. What a guy. Way to go. But it says in Scripture in Esther chapter 3, verse 15, that the couriers went out on April 17th, spurned by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. Now this is what the Haman and the king. The Haman and the king do what they do best. They just sit down and drink. But the city of Susa, it says, was confused and bewildered. They were confused. Why would you do this to these people? They ended up confusing the people that followed them. They didn't agree with it. They liked the Jewish nation. They had no problem with them. Even though they didn't follow all of their rules and regulations, even though Mordecai wouldn't bow down, they still respected him. They still respected who they were. And the difference between Haman and the king and the Israelite people and Mordecai is that Mordecai and the Jewish people, they gained their respect through their integrity. Through their integrity. Through who they were when nobody was looking. And it came through when people were looking. They were no different when people saw them and when people did not see them. That's how they gained their respect. That's what they did. Now, integrity may not get you a powerful position. And integrity may not get you authority on a job. And integrity may not get you popularity. But you don't want to lose that when it comes to respect. You may not see the benefits all the time, but it's a lasting effect that can affect people for the rest of your life. And that is what they had in Susa. And even if you find yourself disagreeing with, even though they disagreed with the Jews, they thought, you know, this is a horrible thing to do to these people. I respect these people. They have integrity. They stand up for what they believe. They don't cower when somebody says bow down. They don't just bow down and disrespect their God. And it's, I think, a challenge for us When we go and we want to be a good employee or a good boss or a good mom or a good dad, and when we want to be a good husband or a good wife, I think it's a challenge for all of us to ask ourselves, do we have respect of the people around us? Do we have integrity with the people around us? What do people see when they see us? Or do we tend to, when things get tough, when we feel that we're threatened, do we feel that we have to gain that through I said so and authority and putting our foot down all the time and telling them what for? Or do we let our integrity speak for us? I was reading a story, actually reading an article about Gillette Penn from Penn and Teller, the magician group. He's actually an atheist, a professed atheist. And he doesn't believe in God. And he blogs about this quite constantly. He writes about it, and even going to the point where he's kind of sarcastic about it. But he said one day, a Christian man was very polite, very kind, came up to him after one of his shows, and he said, "You had a great show tonight. Thank you so much for what you do." And he handed him a Bible. And he said, "I took the Bible." He said, "I don't believe a thing this thing says, but you know what? I respected the man who gave it to me. You know why? Because he believes in a hell. And he believes that by not telling me that something's wrong, he actually believes that this person, he's so concerned with me that he believes, even though I don't believe in a hell, he's concerned for me." And then he goes on in the article to say is, "I don't respect people who don't talk about their faith to me. I can't respect that." He said, "You honestly believe in a hell that I could eternally go to. You honestly believe in that. And you honestly are too afraid to tell me about that because you're afraid of what it might, like what I might think, how I might react." He said, if I knew that you were going to be hit by a car tomorrow and I just didn't want to tell you about it because I was afraid, why would I do that? He said, "I don't agree with him, but I do respect him. In fact, I don't respect people who cower away from their faith." And he blogs about this, and that's basically how the blog ended. The video blog just kind of used it, and that's where he left it. And I thought, wow, there's a guy who disagrees with everything I believe in, but still respects a person who respectfully comes up to them and cares about them enough to have a very uncomfortable conversation. And there's this verse in Proverbs. You want to look at this biblical analogy that I want to talk about. There's this verse in Proverbs that says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." And I look at that verse, and I think about all the people in the news that we never knew that they could be like that, right? We think we know them. We think, have you seen this? I mean, you see an article or you see a newscast or you see something happen and then the story comes out and you think to yourself, "Oh, I thought I knew that person. I love that person. I thought and then the story comes out of who they are when no one is looking or when no one found out, but now they find out and they find out who they really are. And that's what Scripture says. That's what Proverbs says. He said, everyone will be found out when they are not living with integrity. But I think it's true the other way. You'll eventually be found out. Everybody is eventually found out for who they really are. Right? That's what I call an integrity check. Is when who you are in private becomes public. That's an integrity check. When who you are in private becomes public. And that's a scary thought. But every one of us will have that one day. Who we are in private will come public. And it'll come in different ways, in different times. And it may not be a video or a story, but ever so often we'll find ourselves in front of our kids and they'll remind us of something they saw that we didn't think they saw, right? Or they'll say something about us. Or maybe we're having this conversation with their spouse and they're like, "Yeah, I noticed this." And you're like, "Oh, you saw that." Right? And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's not such a good thing. But ever so often, our integrity is going to be brought to light. Ever so often, we're going to be shown for who we are in private. You know, it's one of those things where on Father's Day, I feel like I need to honor my father because You know, and as I was going through, John and I have been very public when we were coming into this position, that one of the things that we felt is that Dad was always the same person around the house that he was standing on the stage. That was probably the biggest challenge for John and I. Something that we had to learn from our father. Because who he is at home was always, he never put on a face at home that he was not willing to put off in public. You know? And I went and made a hospital visit just this week. And I came in, and I went to this hospital, and I came in and I shook their hand, and I prayed with them and everything. And they looked at me and they said, you know, you remind me of your daddy. And yes, maybe I look a lot like my dad, John, but God wants it. He's on vacation. All right, but I physically look like John, like Dad. But you know what? Both of us try to act like Dad because we're proud of who he is, because of who he was, because of what he did. And I'm proud of that comment, not just because I physically look like Dad, but because I want to act like Dad. And ever so often, our integrity is going to be shown. Ever so often, we're going to hear people say something about us. So let me ask you a question to end. When the curtain is pulled on your life, will your integrity gain or lose respect with others? What will happen when it is made public? What will happen to our integrity? When everything is said, when everything is out in the open, when that time comes, what will your integrity show? Because I promise you this, the power you have and the authority you have and the popularity you have, so short, so short. Not a lot of time. But your integrity will last forever. It'll last. And your integrity is what gains respect of the people around you. See, that's what Esther had. That's what Mordecai had. And as this story plays itself out in the coming weeks, you're going to see that everybody's going to be shown for who they are. Everybody's going to be shown. The light's going to shine on Mordecai. The light's going to shine on Esther. The light's going to shine on Haman. And as we see the light shine on these people, and they will be who they are, you're going to see what happens. Let's pray. Father, we love you. And I can say this, Father, that as we read the pages written by the people who just observed you, the pages in the New Testament, Father, what they wrote about you is marvelous. They wrote about a man who loves his creation so much he is willing to die for them. So, Father, let us take your example to be the people, your people, in private as well as in public. To let who we are be consistent. Father, give us integrity. Because it's only through integrity that people will respect us. And give us a possibility and a chance to share what we believe. It's in your Son's name. Amen. Larkin and Emily will make their way up as our prayer team this morning. I guess Emily's back there, but Larkin will make her way up, and I'll be up here as well. Maybe you need prayer for this. Maybe this is something that you need prayer with. And you worry about your integrity. Maybe it's something that you're saying, you know what, this is something you need to pray about, because I find myself in a difficult position sometimes. Needing integrity. Needing the strength to say what I need to say. I'm in a place where God needs to be evident, and I need to be that person. I feel called to that. So I'm going to pray. This is what we're going to pray for this morning. It's just God give me integrity. The will to live who I am in private as well as in public. In the place that I'm either it's in your home or your work or your relationships. That's what I'm going to pray about this morning. So as we stand, this is there.
sin. You are holy.